compassion fatigue is what counsellors and medical staff, emergency service workers develop when they've been exposed to and working a long time with people who are highly distressed and traumatised. People who are, difficult to work with or to manage, and their situations are not necessarily at all easy for us to help them or support them. And burnout, the accumulated stress of the work as it takes its toll, and we become physically, emotionally and mentally worn out. And that's when we are no longer effective in the work that we do. We're going to make errors in judgment in how we interact with our clients and our interventions. We may misjudge things, mishandle situations. And as I mentioned before, working long hours, becoming less effective is also one of the signs of burning out. And also I think the other thing to think about is that working more may also be a way to avoid what we're feeling. It's a way of distancing and numbing out. Transference, this is Greenson's definition from 1967. The experience of feelings, drives, attitudes, fantasies and defences towards a person in the present which do not befoot that person, but are a repetition of reactions originating in regard to significant persons of early childhood, unconsciously displaced onto figures in the present. Now this is a convoluted way of saying that clients, and particularly ones who are traumatised, have a history of violence, abuse, have a tendency at some point to see us as the bad guys. The bad guys who are going to hurt them, betray them, abandon them, just like everyone else has done. And we see that, very common as part of the borderline behavioural traits. And the reality is that in a lot of situations we can't do what our clients would like us to do, either because it's not within our power or it would be inappropriate. So we are going to be letting down our clients at some point during that therapy process. That's, it goes, hand in glove. So therefore we end up finding ourselves fulfilling their perception and their expectation that we are going to be the bad guys. And surprisingly, it's not much fun being cast in the role of the bad guy, particularly when we see ourselves as being the good guys. And most of the time, when we're sort of like being centred and self-aware, we can take those kinds of, transferential responses, on the chin. It's grist to the mill. It's like, if there isn't transference happening in the therapy room, then there isn't any therapy taking place. So, if that needs to be happening, it's our responses to it that can make it either something that can be positively used in the therapy, or it becomes problematic. And so what we find is that the greater the transference from the client will be mirrored by greater counter-transference responses in ourselves, and that just makes common sense. And when we're working with highly traumatised individuals, it also increases our vulnerability to VT, which in turn can significantly impact counter-transference. And that's how it all just sort of like links together. The compassion fatigue, the counter-transference and the burnout, they all really interact with each other very, very closely. This is Perlman and Karingi in a book by Christine Courtois and Julian Ford. It was published in 2009. They describe a type 1 and type 2 type of counter-transference responses that we need to be alert to. And type 1 is when we are over-identifying with the client, where there is enmeshment with the client, and we may be crossing professional boundaries, either trying to rescue them or to fix it for them, or being angry with them or rejecting them because we are finding their behaviour or their stories too difficult to tolerate, and they're pushing our own buttons. And type 2 counter-transference response is the avoidant, counterphobic and detached responses that we've also talked about, where the therapist is disconnected from their feelings and their responses, and then they're going to come across as unempathic or dismissive, uncaring, just sort of like being matter of fact. Now, we may be more prone to being, a type 1 person or a type 2 person. At different times we might be, either of them. And the avoidant counsellor might look like they are coping more, but they are also experiencing problems in processing, the pain and anger and sorrow and frustration that they are feeling around their clients. And I think one of the things that is really important to understanding our counter-transference responses is that people who have had recent traumas or have had accumulated traumas, they are unable to follow through very often on actions that we may suggest to them. Even when they can see that what we're suggesting might be really helpful and a good idea, they are just not able to do it, and that is the nature of trauma responses. But for us, that can be frustrating. It's like, if you'd only do this, it would be so much better for you. But they're not able to just only do this. And that can make us feel like we're not doing a good job in helping them, which of course then increases the potential for vicarious trauma. So we need to be able to stand back. That's really, really important in our work, to be able to stand back and remember when we're working with clients, is that old saying that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And for many of our clients, it is going to be a long time before they may be able to do some very basic self-care things. And that means sitting with clients who may be very, very dysfunctional for quite a long period of time. And you just need to understand it's going to take as long as it's going to take. We can't hurry up that process for the individual.